Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another video. I saw this article. I'm actually not familiar with the Federalist, but I was looking around at different articles of different news and stuff like that, and I noticed this very interesting article. Star Wars spoon feeds paganism to kids in live-action Ahsoka. And I just thought I would comment on this because it's actually, despite the title, it's an interesting article in a lot of ways. Star Wars has relied on mythical archetypes, but the newest television series descends into occult and pagan realm. For the first 5 episodes of Star Wars Ahsoka, instead of an engaging story, the show's energy focuses on the female-centric cast and reveling in all the animated characters from the Star Wars Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels who are now in live action. It's self-indulgent and boring. Yeah, I would 100% agree with that assessment of the first 5 episodes. It's really boring, and Filoni tries to create drama just by having like these long, awkward silences, and it's like, bro, that's not dramatic. it's pretty crappy. Things pick up and get weird in episode 6 when the nominal witch, Morgan Elsbeth, meets a trio of bona fide witches, the 3 great mothers named after the Greek fates, and capable of wielding a distinct form of force called magic. Greek fates. Wait a second. Wow. What? Clotho, Actropa, and Lycosis. Unfrickin' believable. Named after the Greek fates and capable of wielding a distinct form of force called magic. You guys, I looked it up. They literally just changed the spelling of the names of these Greek, like, what? They're like Greek goddesses. Like, literally, bro, are you kidding me? Clotho, Lycosis, and Atropo. And their names are Clotho, Lycosis, and Atropo. So they just changed the spelling. So Dave Filoni literally stole... What? I can't even believe this. I didn't even know this. He literally stole these names of the Morai. English is the fates, were personifications of destiny. He just everything's stolen. Everything he took from Lord of the Rings, and he doesn't even try. He literally named them pronunciation-wise exactly the same. He just spelled it different. What? The role was to ensure that every being, mortal and divine, lived out their destiny as it was assigned to them by the laws of the universe. This destiny spanned their entire lives to be above even the gods in their role as enforcers of fate, although in some representations, Zeus, the chief of gods, is able to command them. Oh my gosh! So Filoni, literally, the witches are literally just earth pagan crap inserted into Star Wars. Wow. If you don't live on Wikipedia, the Star Wars wiki, or you haven't seen all 7 seasons of the Clone Wars and all 4 of Rebels, some of that might sound more pagan than you're accustomed to seeing in Star Wars. After all, the Force was described by Obi-Wan in A New Hope sounds more Eastern and Buddhist, which is what George said. An energy field created by all living things that surrounds us, penetrates us, and binds the galaxy together. But as with much of the extended canon, storytellers expanded on the groundwork of the 6 movies. And for me, that's what made Star Wars different, right? You had all these fantasy tropes that, like witches, that have been used and reused and rehashed and repackaged in fantasy novels and books and movies for forever. It's the same kind of tropes, the same kind of thing. But Star Wars was different in that you felt like the Force kind of had like a bigger thing behind it. Right? It wasn't like Luke was just some magician. Luke tapped into something bigger, and that helped him get the lightsaber to save him from the abominable snowman thing in Empire. I forget what they're called. And in the end, ultimately, to achieve the end result he wanted to, he actually couldn't even use that or use this Force. He just had to express love, right? And that's what ended up winning the day. So the Force wasn't like the thing that you used to get what you wanted necessarily, and there was something bigger behind it that you're tapping into rather than just general boring magic. So, according to Wikipedia, these witches in the Star Wars universe connect to an aspect of the Force through ancient rituals, talismans, and voodoo dolls. They draw their power from living sacrifices and certain planets with malevolent energy. Their rituals in the Clone Wars are genuinely creepy, no matter your age. Their magic allows them to resurrect dead as zombies, inflict pain from a distance, conjure invisibility potions, teleport, and make normal creatures into monsters. Which is, again, all of those things are just general, usual, everyday fantasy things. Star Wars, again, before these characters were created, there was a differentiation between the level of magic and fantasy in Star Wars to what you had in generic fantasy. And it's funny that he brings up talismans, because talismans, they've turned lightsabers in some ways into some sort of powerful object in themselves. Like they're talking about now in the comic books and stuff that the user becomes one with his lightsaber. They've even gone so far in some things as to say that the lightsaber changes color based on the guy's mood or whatever, like whether he's feeling dark side or not. Like, and even Balin, his lightsaber definitely went from kind of an orangey color to a more red color in the last couple of episodes. We're turning objects into magical things now instead of it just being a weapon. I'm not coming from the perspective of, oh, we're teaching kids paganism. I don't care about that right now in this video. What I'm saying is it's bringing Star Wars down into the same level as just sort of generic fantasy that you see every day. Whereas the previous iteration of the Force kind of was different, right? And it separated Star Wars from sort of generic fantasy, and that was kind of what made it special, right? It was not only technologically different and sci-fi and spaceships and stuff, but the actual Force, the magic side of it was very different from your generic fantasy story, and there was something bigger. And now they're bringing it down, and you see that with the ratings, you see that with the toy sales, you see that with everything. It's just kind of becoming just sort of mundane, whatever. Yes, people like it, but it's the same old fantasy stuff, just with a Star Wars skin. If all this sounds like standard pagan fare, it is. The witchcraft frightens Jedi and Sith alike. While their presence in the Star Wars universe is not new, there's something different about seeing these frightening figures in live action. Well, I wouldn't call them frightening. I would call them corny and cheesy and boring, but whatever. In Ahsoka, they dress in matching red robes with gray face paint. And when a great mother speaks, there's a chorus of voices backing her, and they form an unholy trinity, drawing triangles in the air among the three of them. And when the secret map to the location is unlocked, the galaxy is overlaid with a triquetra, a traditional Trinitarian symbol. And that's true. It's true if you look that up. And again, you're just bringing in earthly stuff into Star Wars. Like it doesn't work. It's part of the reason that George wrote slang in Star Wars different, right? The nerf herders and stuff. I guess Han does say hell at some point as a quasi swear word, but that's as far as it ever went. It doesn't make it special when it's the same as everything else. I don't know how people don't understand this. All this witchcraft and paganism is especially bizarre considering the rest of the show feels like it's made for kids. The slow-moving plot allows two angsty teen apprentices. Sabine Wren has a tense, almost mother-daughter relationship with her master Ahsoka. Her purple and orange hair screams teen rebellion. As I've said all along, she's a 15-year-old in a 30-year-old's body. They're clearly trying to market this towards, 15-year-old girls. Her counterpart is Sith apprentice Shin Hati, a girl with bleach blonde hair and thick black eyeliner. They are two sides of the same emo coin. Yes, exactly. And that's who this show is for. Kathleen Kennedy has been very aggressive in her trying to get tween and teen girls into Star Wars. It's not working very well, but that's the attempt she's trying to make, rather than just continuing the progress of George, which was 12-year-old boys, which was extremely successful, but whatever. Rounding out the cast are their long-suffering considerate masters, the Sith Master Balin surprisingly looks out for his apprentice. He advises her on how to earn a good place in the coming new order. The Jedi Ahsoka Tano patiently endures Sabine, stealing her things, betraying her, and talking back at every turn. Yeah, this is a good article. He's right. The more I think about it, it's totally like an angsty teen, like in a mom relationship. Totally is. And that's who they're trying to appeal it to. There's also General Syndulla, a widow and working mom who cares for her young son while investigating the Imperial remnants. Yet this tenderness feels incongruous when they finally reach the Imperial Grand Admiral Thrawn and the Night Sisters. After 5 episodes of hurt feelings, misunderstandings, and overbearing parental expectations, all of a sudden there are frightening witches, a blue-skinned, red-eyed, ruthless Thrawn, and a chanting army of spooky stormtroopers, and the unnatural magic begins in earnest. Yeah, pretty much. It's 5 episodes of boring, hurt feelings, same conversations over and over and over again, and he's so right, it totally feels like a teenage daughter being an idiot, and then the mom, chastising her, and then it just all of a sudden switches on a dime into regular Earth paganism magic, which again has been done a bazillion times and makes Star Wars not special. Satanic Sisters of Baptism. One mercenary accompanying Skull and Nodi is named Merrick, and when Ahsoka slashes him with her lightsaber, his body violently dissolves into green mist, which I laughed out loud when that happened. The stormtroopers that serve under Grand Admiral Thrawn all wear red ribbons around their armor and the same color as the Night Sisters' robes, and they are called Night Troopers. They are led by Captain Enoch, a name that's shared with the biblical figure who did not see death. Okay. In the finale, when a squad of troops is slain, the Great Mothers begin chanting in another language, and green mist enters the fallen troopers, and they rise and continue fighting. For the first time in live action, we have zombie troopers. I always assumed they already were zombie troopers, because their armor's all wrecked. They look like they had passed away at some point, been killed, and the red ribbons and stuff, and they're called Night Troopers, so I assume the Night Sisters had already resurrected them. But they were more zombie-ish after they resurrected them on the show. Like, I assumed they already were zombies, but when they do resurrect them, then they start, like, groaning and moving around like zombies and become even more useless than the regular stormtroopers, so maybe, okay, whatever. It doesn't matter. Either way, it's cringe. Also in the finale, Morgan Elsbeth receives a gift of shadows from the Great Mother. She makes a vow that echoes a baptismal ceremony. She is asked, do you pledge yourself to the sisterhood, to the magic, to the old ways? Do you abandon your old life for this new one, your loyalty, your life? And then she says, I do. Now, I didn't see it as a baptism, per se, personally. I kind of viewed it as just sort of your regular run-of-the-mill secret society or whatever, occult oath. That's the way I saw it, which, again, is corny and is earthly and doesn't belong in Star Wars, right? It's just cheese. Like, they do these kind of things, like if you wanted to join a coven, you would do something similar. That's how I viewed it. I didn't see it as a baptism, but whatever. The ritual culminates with a laying on of hands from one witch. Morgan's eyes and head glow. She moans and throws her head back. Her face suddenly shows dark lines, and then the witches conjure the blade of Talzin. Yeah, I mentioned that too, out of thin air. Like, why do we care about the blade of Talzin? There was never any discussion about it. There was nothing about it. And then all of a sudden, look at this cool flaming blade, which again, the flaming blade is another regular fantasy trope that's been used a bazillion times. It's not special, and all you're doing by putting this into Star Wars is bringing Star Wars down to the level of generic fantasy. Expect more pain. The season ends with Morgan dead, but the Great Mothers and Thrawn free of exile. Skull finds giant statues of the gods of Morris, an obscure trio of warring godlike beings from the Clone Wars. Instead of having the Force be mysterious, let's have gods. Let's have gods of the Force in Star Wars. It's so cheese, and again, it brings it down. I've been saying since day one, the cartoons, the fact that they're canon, ruin all the difference of Star Wars from other fantasy things. All these villains remain at large at the season's end as for the timeline of Star Wars shows, which includes The Mandalorian, Ahsoka, The Book of Boba Fett, and a coming movie that combines them all. It's a safe bet that paganism is here to stay. Now, again, the whole paganism part of it, it's just whether or not you see that as like a moral issue. I'm not even thinking about that. I'm thinking like it's just cheap, crappy storytelling. And now that I know even the names of these witches, like Dave Filoni just ripped off everything. He ripped off Lord of the Rings with the Ahsoka the Great, Ahsoka the White, to the statues, to the wargs, right, in the last few episodes that are running around now. They don't look as evil as the wargs in Lord of the Rings, but it's very similar to bringing in base level pagan crap from Earth into Star Wars. And then even the names of the witches, like he ripped off this whole show. I'm telling you, I've written things, okay? He sat down and he had writer's block. That's what happened. And I don't, and I think this is him as a guy. Like, I think even if you look at the Clone Wars and and Rebels, he's ripping off of a lot of ideas. Because let's face it, this stuff was in there too already. I think he just isn't a good writer. I think he just knows people and got a job, and that's it. He was just buddies with George Lucas, and that's it, because he can't write. Everything he writes, he steals. He doesn't write anything new. Every episode of Clone Wars, you could go back and connect it to some other thing that somebody else wrote. He doesn't have creativity. He just rips things off, and this is the Ahsoka show is the biggest ripoff of all time. Now, as far as what he ripped off, he decided to rip off paganism or whatever this guy's saying, or like regular Earth magic tropes and stuff. I mean, his wife is kind of into that stuff. Obviously, her Instagram, right? She's got some interesting photos and stuff, and her name in her Instagram account has something to do with like a cemetery or something like that. So she's into that, and he married her, so he's probably into that to some degree as well. And so they insert that in. And finally, I will say it one more time. When Star Wars, the first 6 movies were out, the prequels had their issues, but Star Wars was still elevated above every other fantasy IP other than Lord of the Rings, but Lord of the Rings at the time was just a book, right? And obviously Lord of the Rings became a movie, blah, blah, blah. But it was basically the peak of fantasy IPs. And then, of course, it had the fantasy mixed with the sci-fi element, which made it really good as well. But it was different, like I said, in that the magic that was in Star Wars was a mystery, and there was something bigger behind it, and you always felt like that. You know, putting gods behind it that you can see, or magic witches that you can see, diminishes it and brings it down to a level of more generic fantasy. So then you're relying completely on the visuals and the ships and all that other stuff that is sci-fi, because your stories are generic fantasy stories that we've seen a million times, read a million times, and there's nothing special about it. It doesn't differentiate itself. All that to say, that is a mistake, and we're seeing that with the popularity going down, the toy sales going down, the ratings going down, when Star Wars was always way above everything else. The hype was incredible, right? So, I mean, it's a mistake. It's a mistake, and I think it's due to a writer who is lazy and just doesn't know how to write a story and only knows how to steal other people's ideas and the good things from other things, and it's really sad. It's sad, the state of Star Wars. So forget about the whole like pagans to kids stuff. It's corny and cheesy, and my kids don't even like it. They think it's boring and it sucks, and it's because it's not different. And so you guys let me know in the comment section what you think. Do you think having like regular magic that you've seen in like every other IP ever in Star Wars, do you think that makes it better, worse? Does it make it differentiate itself? Do you like this? Let me know in the comment section what you think. If you like this video, check out my other content. I have lots of Star Wars content. I've reviewed every episode of Ahsoka. Obviously, my sequels Reimagined is there, which is a story that I wrote. If you do like this content, please like and subscribe. Really helps the channel. And thanks for watching and listening, and you guys have yourself a good day.